The city outside his hotel window was still asleep, bathed in the faint grey light of dawn. Michael sat in silence, staring at the condensation-forming patterns on the glass, his body still humming from the endless rehearsals of the past week. The tour was only days away, and everything felt larger than life. Venues booked out months in advance, fans sleeping on sidewalks, an entire world waiting to see him. Yet in that quiet room, there was only stillness, punctuated by the steady tick of the clock on the nightstand. He rubbed his eyes, fighting off fatigue, but the unease in his chest wasn't from exhaustion. Something else gnawed at him, though he couldn't name it. On the desk by the window, a neatly folded sheet of paper caught his eye. It hadn't been there the night before. Michael frowned, leaning forward, the leather chair creaking softly. He picked it up with tentative fingers, the paper cool and unfamiliar, as though it carried a weight beyond its flimsy texture. Unfolding it slowly, he read the words scrawled in uneven handwriting. "You cannot sing away the truth. Before you walk on that stage, remember, some secrets are meant to be buried." His breath caught. He read it again, then a third time, his hands trembling slightly. It wasn't a fan letter. It wasn't a request or a plea. It was a warning. The words seemed to whisper off the page, crawling into his mind like smoke. He turned the paper over, blank. No name, no signature, no indication of who had left it. The door had been locked, the windows shut. His security detail always guarded the hallway. How had this note found its way inside? Michael pushed back from the desk, the chair scraping the hardwood floor. A prickle ran down his spine, as if unseen eyes lingered just beyond the walls. He grabbed the phone and dialed Bill's room. When his manager answered, groggy and irritated, Michael's voice was low but urgent. "Bill, come here. Now." Within minutes, Bill burst into the room, his hair disheveled, his shirt half-buttoned. Michael handed him the note without a word. Bill read it, his brow furrowing deeper with each line. He looked up, jaw tight. "Where did this come from?" "I don't know," Michael whispered. "It was just here." Bill cursed softly, folding the paper and slipping it into his jacket pocket. "I'll get security to sweep the entire floor. No one gets in or out without clearance." He paused, studying Michael's pale face. "You can't let this shake you. We've had letters before." Michael shook his head. "Not like this. This one, it feels different." He couldn't explain why, but every instinct screamed that the words were not just empty threats. They carried a weight, a knowledge that chilled him. The rest of the day unfolded in uneasy fragments. Security prowled the corridors, checking locks, inspecting cameras, interrogating staff. Michael tried to focus on rehearsals, but his movements felt heavy, his voice strained. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw the note again, those jagged letters burning into his mind. During a break, he confided in one of his dancers, who tried to laugh it off. "Probably just a prank, Mike. Some people get kicks out of scaring celebrities." But Michael wasn't convinced. That night, sleep eluded him. Every creak of the hotel, every distant shout from the street made his heart race. He sat awake by the window, the city lights flickering below, the note's words looping endlessly in his head. At one point, he thought he saw a shadow move in the hallway, but when he opened the door, it was empty. By dawn, his nerves were frayed raw. The following morning, another note appeared. This time, it was slipped under his door. The handwriting was the same, but the words were harsher. "The stage is not your sanctuary. The closer you get to the lights, the closer the truth will come. Stop, before it's too late." Michael's hands shook as he read it. Fear coiled tighter around his chest. He called Bill again, who stormed in with the head of security. "We'll double the guards," Bill snapped, waving the paper like evidence. "We'll check every staff member. Whoever's doing this won't get near you." But Michael barely heard him. His thoughts spun wildly. What truth? What secret? He wasn't naive. He knew rumors followed him everywhere, from tabloids to television. But this felt personal, as if the writer knew something intimate, something dangerous. The uncertainty gnawed at him worse than the threat itself. In the days that followed, the notes kept coming, each one more ominous than the last. They appeared in his dressing room, in his hotel suite, even once inside a jacket pocket he hadn't worn since rehearsal. Always the same jagged handwriting, always the same cryptic tone. The messages painted a picture of someone who was close, too close, someone who had slipped past layers of protection to reach him directly. Michael's world, once so controlled and meticulously managed, began to unravel. He became jumpy, scanning faces in the crew, wondering who among them might be the traitor. He questioned hotel staff, lingered at rehearsals longer than necessary, pacing, watching, waiting. At night, he sat with the lights on, the notes spread before him like puzzle pieces he couldn't assemble. The words haunted him. Secrets are meant to be buried. The stage is not your sanctuary. Despite the fear, he pressed on with rehearsals. The tour was too massive to stop, the fans too eager, the contracts too binding. Each performance required perfection, and Michael forced himself into the role, his body executing flawless moves while his mind remained ensnared by the notes. The dancers noticed his distraction, the band sensed his unease, but no one dared question him directly. One evening, as he prepared to leave rehearsal, he found another note tucked into his bag. This one was longer, more detailed. You think the lights hide you. You think the music makes you untouchable. But the truth walks beside you, and when the curtain rises, so will it. Ask yourself, Michael, what do you fear most being revealed? He froze, the words searing into his mind. It wasn't just a threat anymore. It was intimate, probing, as if the writer knew his deepest insecurities. His chest tightened, and for the first time, he considered canceling the show. But then he thought of the fans, their faces pressed against barriers, their voices rising in unison, their unwavering devotion. Could he let them down because of fear? Could he walk away knowing millions waited? That night, he called his mother. He didn't tell her about the notes, only that he felt restless, that something weighed heavy on him. Her voice was calm, soothing, a balm against the storm in his chest. Michael, remember who you are. Remember why you sing. Fear is just noise. Don't let it drown your music. He clung to her words, but the unease lingered. The morning of the first show arrived. The stadium loomed in the distance, banners with his face fluttering in the breeze, fans flooding the streets. Inside, chaos reigned as crew members rushed to finalize preparations. Michael sat in his dressing room, staring at his reflection. The sequin jacket shimmered under the fluorescent lights, the single glove gleamed, but his eyes betrayed him, tired, haunted, afraid. Then came the final note. It was waiting on his chair, folded neatly, almost reverently. He opened it with trembling hands, his breath catching as he read, "Tonight the lights will rise, and so will the truth. The world will see what even you try to hide." Michael's heart pounded. The words echoed in his skull. He felt suddenly exposed, as if invisible walls had crumbled around him. He crushed the note in his hand, rising to his feet. He couldn't back out now. Whatever truth the writer claimed to hold, whatever fear it was meant to spark, he had no choice but to face it. The curtain was rising, and with it, so was he. The roar of the crowd seeped through the concrete walls of the stadium, a constant thunder that made the very floor tremble. Michael sat motionless in his dressing room, his back straight against the chair, his eyes fixed on the crushed note still in his hand. The words pulsed in his mind like a drumbeat. Tonight the lights will rise, and so will the truth. He wondered if the thousands of fans screaming outside had any inkling of the storm raging inside him. To them, he was invincible, untouchable, the king of pop about to deliver magic. But inside, he felt fragile, as though the next breath might shatter him. Bill burst into the room without knocking, his face flushed. "Mike, it's almost time. The crew is ready, the dancers are in place. We just need you." He paused when he saw the look on Michael's face, the tension in his jaw, the crumpled paper in his fist. "Another one?" Bill asked quietly. Michael nodded, tossing the note onto the table. Bill snatched it up, his expression hardening as he read. "This is insane," he muttered. "They're trying to scare you. That's all this is. You can't let them win." Michael rose slowly, smoothing the front of his jacket. The sequins shimmered under the light, but his reflection in the mirror still looked ghostly, drained. "Bill," he said softly, "what if they know something? What if they're not just threats?" Bill set the note down firmly. "Listen to me. You've worked too hard, for too long, to let some faceless coward stop you. The truth is what you create on that stage. Nothing else matters. Nothing." Michael wanted to believe him. He wanted to drown in the confidence Bill projected. But a flicker of unease still curled in his chest. He nodded anyway, forcing his lips into a thin smile. "Let's do it." As he stood, Karen, his makeup artist, adjusted the brim of his fedora, whispering, "They're waiting for you, Michael. Give them what only you can." Her words, though meant to reassure, felt like a heavy responsibility pressing deeper onto his shoulders. The corridor leading to the stage stretched before him like a tunnel, the air thick with the mingling scents of sweat, smoke, and electricity. His security team flanked him, their faces grim, eyes scanning every corner as if shadows might suddenly lunge out. The roar of the crowd grew louder with each step, until it became a living, breathing thing, a monster of sound that swallowed his thoughts whole. Just before stepping into the wings, he glanced down and froze. Another note lay on the floor, folded neatly, almost waiting for him. His throat tightened. He bent, his glove brushing the paper as he picked it up. Unfolding it with trembling fingers, he read, "The crowd believes they know you. Tonight, they will see who you really are." A chill ran down his spine. He crumpled the note quickly and shoved it into his pocket, unwilling to show it to anyone this time. Bill's words rang in his ears, "Don't let them win." The crew signaled. The lights dimmed. The crowd erupted. Michael closed his eyes, drawing in a slow breath, and stepped onto the platform that would lift him onto the stage. The opening explosion of pyrotechnics shook the stadium. When Michael appeared, frozen in silhouette, the crowd screamed with such force it rattled the rafters. For a moment, the fear melted away, drowned by the tidal wave of adoration crashing over him. He stood still, letting the spotlight carve his figure from the darkness, his chest rising and falling in time with the chants. Then, with a flick of his head, the show began. Each move was sharp, precise, electric. The band thundered behind him, the dancers glided like shadows, the audience screamed every lyric back to him. For the first half of the show, he was untouchable again, the fear buried beneath the glitter and sweat. Yet even as he spun and slid across the stage, a part of his mind remained tethered to the notes, to the unseen eyes watching. He scanned the sea of faces, the flashing cameras, the endless arms reaching toward him. Any one of them could be the writer. Any one could hold the secret. Midway through the set, as the lights dimmed for a ballad, he noticed movement near the front row. A commotion. Security rushed forward, fans screamed, a figure collapsed against the barrier. Michael's heart lurched. Without thinking, he moved to the edge of the stage, signaling the band to hold. "Are they okay?" he called out, his voice trembling slightly. The spotlights swung toward the scene. A young woman lay unconscious, her hand still clutching a folded piece of paper. Michael's pulse pounded in his ears. The guards lifted her gently, carrying her toward the side of the stage. He descended the steps quickly, reaching them just as they set her down. A medic knelt beside her, checking her pulse. Michael's eyes fell to the paper in her hand. With trembling fingers, he took it, unrolling it carefully. His stomach turned as he read, "Even they fall when they get too close to the truth. You cannot save them." He staggered back, the paper slipping from his fingers. The noise of the crowd blurred into a distant roar. Bill rushed over, grabbing his arm. "Mike, you need to get back on stage. The cameras are rolling." Michael shook his head weakly. They knew this would happen. Bill didn't argue, just shoved the note into his pocket and guided him back toward the lights. Focus. Finish the show. We'll deal with this later. Michael forced himself back into the performance, but his movements felt heavier, his voice strained. The audience, lost in the spectacle, cheered louder, oblivious to the storm inside him. Each song was a battle, each smile a mask. He kept glancing toward the wings, where the girl had been carried away, wondering if she was all right, wondering if she had been a victim or a pawn. After the encore, drenched in sweat, he bowed deeply, the cheers washing over him like fire. The curtain fell. The lights dimmed. He staggered off stage, his chest heaving, his mind spinning. Bill caught him, steadying him with a firm grip. You did it. You made it through. But Michael shook his head, whispering, "This isn't over." Later, in the dressing room, as he peeled off his jacket, he noticed something taped to the mirror. A note, bold and deliberate, staring back at him. The stage was only the beginning. Tomorrow, you will understand. His knees nearly gave out. He gripped the table, staring at his own reflection, the note vibrating in the corner of his vision. He felt as though he was standing on the edge of something vast, a darkness waiting to swallow him whole. He whispered to his reflection, "What do you want from me?" But the mirror offered no answers, only his haunted eyes staring back. That night, he couldn't return to the hotel. Bill insisted on moving him to a new location, a private estate on the outskirts of the city, guarded by a dozen men. Michael lay awake in the unfamiliar room, the note still burning in his mind. He heard every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of wind against the windows. Sleep, when it came, was restless, filled with dreams of faceless figures whispering secrets in the dark. The next morning, as he stepped into the kitchen, he found yet another note waiting on the counter. You can change rooms, change cities, but you cannot escape what walks beside you. His breath caught. Whoever it was, they weren't just inside the venues. They were inside his life. He sank into a chair, the note trembling in his hand. For the first time, he felt truly trapped. Fame had always been a cage in some ways, but now the bars felt solid, unbreakable. He was being hunted, not by a crowd or the press, but by someone who knew how to slip past every lock, every guard, every wall. And worse, by someone who seemed to know him better than he knew himself. The following day felt like a blur of shifting shadows and unanswered questions. Michael sat at the long oak table in the private estate, a half-finished cup of coffee cooling in front of him, untouched. His fingers drummed restlessly against the polished wood, the note from that morning still burning in his pocket. You can change rooms, change cities, but you cannot escape what walks beside you. The words gnawed at him like a parasite, burrowing deeper each time he tried to push them aside. Bill entered the room, phone pressed tightly against his ear, his voice clipped with frustration. "I don't care how much it costs," he barked. "Double the security. No one gets near him without clearance. Not fans, not staff, not anyone." He hung up and turned to Michael, softening his tone. "We'll get to the bottom of this. Whoever they are, they won't get past me." Michael nodded slowly but said nothing. He had always trusted Bill to protect him, but this was different. This wasn't just a stalker trying to sneak into a hotel lobby or a fan mailing letters. This was someone who could weave themselves into the very fabric of his life, leaving notes in his dressing room, on his mirror, even in his safe house. Someone who knew his movements before he made them. Karen entered then, holding a tray of food. She smiled gently, but her eyes betrayed her concern. "You need to eat, Michael. You'll make yourself sick." He forced a weak smile, thanked her, and pushed the plate toward him, though his appetite was long gone. Every bite felt like sand in his mouth, each swallow a reminder that his body still demanded fuel, even as his mind spiraled deeper into fear. As the day dragged on, he tried to distract himself with rehearsals in the estate's private studio. The mirrors reflected his movements back to him, every spin, every glide, every lean as sharp as ever. But the joy, the freedom that usually came with dance, felt absent. The music thundered through the speakers, but beneath it, he swore he could still hear whispers. The notes had planted seeds of paranoia, and now every flicker in the corner of his eye, every creak of the floor, every shadow felt alive, watching, waiting. That evening, Bill insisted on reviewing surveillance footage from the stadium. Michael sat beside him, watching the grainy black and white screens as thousands of fans surged and screamed. They replayed the moment the young woman collapsed, frame by frame. There, her hand gripping the folded paper. But the camera never caught who had given it to her. Just a blur of movement, a figure slipping back into the crowd before security could react. "Freeze that," Michael whispered, leaning closer. But the image was too distorted, the figure faceless. "They were there. Right there, watching me," he said hoarsely. Bill clenched his fists. "Then we'll find them. No matter how long it takes." That night, as Michael prepared for bed, he noticed something odd about the curtains. They were drawn slightly apart, though he was sure he had left them closed. His heart raced. He approached cautiously, pulling them back. Nothing. Just the dark expanse of the garden, still and quiet beneath the moonlight. Yet taped to the inside of the glass was another note. His breath caught as he peeled it away. "Even in silence, I see you. Even in darkness, you shine too brightly to hide." The paper fluttered from his trembling hands. Panic gripped him. He backed away from the window, his chest heaving. Bill came running at the sound of his cry, grabbing the note, scanning it quickly before barking orders into his radio. Guards stormed the grounds, sweeping every corner with flashlights, but once again, nothing. Whoever was tormenting Michael moved like a phantom, leaving only words in their wake. Sleep became impossible. Michael paced his room, the walls closing in around him, his reflection in the mirror a stranger. He whispered to himself, trying to drown out the echoes in his head. "You're okay. You're safe. They can't touch you." But deep down, he wasn't sure if he believed it. The following morning brought another rehearsal, this time at the actual venue for his next concert. Bill insisted on a full security sweep, dogs sniffing every corridor, guards stationed at every entrance. Michael arrived quietly, hood pulled low, sunglasses shielding his tired eyes. He moved through the backstage corridors, every step heavy, every glance over his shoulder reminding him that nowhere was safe. As he entered his dressing room, he froze. On the vanity sat a small box, neatly wrapped in black paper, tied with a thin red ribbon. His stomach dropped. "Don't touch it!" Bill barked, rushing forward. The box was carefully lifted, examined, scanned. No explosives. No devices. Just a folded piece of paper inside. Michael's hands shook as he unfolded it. "The box is empty, just like the image you project. But soon, the world will see the truth behind the mask." His eyes stung. The words pierced deeper than threats. They echoed the private doubts that had haunted him for years, that he was only an illusion, a figure on a stage, not a man. Whoever wrote them didn't just know his movements. They knew his soul. The hours before the concert ticked by slowly, each minute a new test of his endurance. He tried to focus on his breathing, his routines, but his mind kept drifting back to the faceless figure in the crowd, the shadows slipping away. When showtime finally arrived, Michael stood in the wings, every nerve alight. The crowd's thunderous anticipation rattled the floor. He adjusted his glove, tilted his hat, and whispered a prayer under his breath. Then, the lights dropped, the pyro exploded, and he was lifted into the spotlight once again. The performance began flawlessly. Each song soared, each move drew deafening screams. For fleeting moments, he was himself again, the fear drowned in waves of love from the audience. But midway through, during a brief pause, the stage crew wheeled out a stool for him to sing a quiet ballad. As he lowered himself onto it, he noticed something carved into the wood. His heart stopped. The words, etched deep, read, You cannot sit comfortably when the truth burns beneath you. His voice faltered. The audience leaned in, sensing the raw emotion in his tone. They thought it was passion, vulnerability, artistry. But inside, he was unraveling. He forced himself to finish the song, tears glistening in his eyes, the words catching in his throat. When the last note rang out, the crowd erupted into applause, unaware of the true storm within him. After the show, back in his dressing room, Michael collapsed into a chair, drenched in sweat. He buried his face in his hands, whispering, "Why me? Why now?" Bill knelt beside him, gripping his shoulder. "We'll find them, Mike. I swear we will. But you have to stay strong. Don't let them see you break." But Michael wasn't sure how much strength he had left. Each note seemed to strip away another layer, exposing wounds he thought he had buried long ago. He felt hunted not just as a performer, but as a man. Later that night, alone in the estate once more, he wandered into the garden, desperate for air. The moon cast long shadows across the grass, the night alive with the hum of crickets. He closed his eyes, tilting his face toward the stars, searching for peace. That's when he felt it, something cold and thin brushing his ankle. He looked down. Another note, tied with a delicate black string, fastened around the leg of the bench where he now sat. With shaking hands, he untied it and read, "You search the sky for answers, but the truth is buried in the earth beneath your feet." His breath came ragged, the night suddenly suffocating. He dropped the paper, stumbling back toward the house. He no longer felt like he was standing on solid ground. Every surface, every corner, every breath carried the possibility of another message, another reminder that the unseen hand pulling these strings was always a step ahead. Michael knew one thing for certain: whoever this was, they weren't just following him. They were inside his world, closer than anyone should ever be. And until he uncovered who they were, there would be no peace, no safety, no escape. The morning of the concert arrived with a heaviness that pressed on Michael's chest like a weight he couldn't shake. The estate, once a sanctuary, now felt like a cage. Every hallway, every locked door, every shadow reminded him of the notes, of the faceless figure haunting him. He barely slept. When dawn broke, he was already awake, pacing his room, the silence deafening. Bill knocked softly before entering. "It's the big day, Mike," he said, trying to sound reassuring. "We've tripled the security. No one gets within a mile of you without my say-so. You can breathe easy." But breathing was the last thing Michael felt capable of. He looked at Bill, his eyes sunken from sleeplessness. "They'll be there. I can feel it." His voice cracked with exhaustion. Karen entered a few minutes later with tea, but even her warm presence couldn't lift the gloom. "You have to eat, Michael. You'll need your strength tonight." He gave her a faint nod but pushed the tray aside untouched. His stomach twisted at the thought of food. By midday, they headed to the venue. The convoy of black SUVs sped through the streets, windows tinted, sirens clearing the way. Michael sat in the back seat, staring blankly out at the blur of passing buildings. His gloved hand tapped nervously against his knee, every bump in the road setting his nerves further on edge. Bill sat beside him, talking into his radio, updating security teams. When they arrived, the stadium was a fortress. Armed guards patrolled every entrance, metal detectors lined the halls, and sniffer dogs combed the backstage corridors. Yet despite all the protection, Michael felt more exposed than ever. The air itself seemed heavy with expectation. In his dressing room, he found roses scattered across the table, a gift from fans. But nestled among them was another envelope. His blood ran cold. Bill snatched it up, tore it open, and read aloud, "Tonight, the mask will fall. Tonight, the world will see you as I do." Michael's hands shook. He dropped into a chair, burying his face in his palms. "Why won't they stop?" he whispered. Bill crushed the note in his fist. "They are here. Somewhere inside this building. I'll find them." He stormed out, barking orders at his men. Left alone, Michael stared at his reflection in the mirror. His makeup was half finished, his iconic jacket hanging from a rack nearby. He tried to steady his breath. But the words echoed in his head, "The mask will fall." What did it mean? That his secrets would be revealed? His insecurities? His soul? Time ticked forward, relentless. Soon the roar of the crowd filtered through the walls. Tens of thousands of voices chanting his name, begging for him. He forced himself up, slipping into his jacket, adjusting his hat. He had to go out there, no matter what. As he walked toward the stage, every step felt like walking deeper into the unknown. Bill appeared again, his face grim. "We swept the place 3 times. Nothing. But stay close to me, all right?" The lights dimmed. The audience screamed. Michael took his place behind the curtain, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might give out. Then, just as the opening beat was about to drop, he felt something beneath his glove. Tucked into the microphone he was about to hold was another note. His stomach lurched. He unfolded it with trembling fingers. "The truth is not on stage, Michael. It waits for you backstage, in the room where the lights cannot follow." His blood ran cold. He shoved the note into his pocket and stepped into the spotlight. The show had to go on. And go on it did. Every song, every move, was flawless. The crowd screamed, cried, reached for him. For 2 hours he poured himself into the performance, using every ounce of energy to drown out the fear. But inside, he knew what awaited when the final curtain fell. When the show ended, the screams still echoing in his ears, Bill escorted him swiftly backstage. They entered the dressing room, guards posted outside. On the table sat a small leather-bound journal. Michael froze. Bill picked it up cautiously, flipping it open. Page after page was filled with handwriting, descriptions of Michael's life, details only someone close could know. His rehearsals, his meals, the things he said when no one else was around. And at the back, a final entry: "I am not your enemy. I am your shadow. I remind you that even at your brightest, the darkness follows. Without me, you wouldn't shine." Michael's knees buckled. Karen caught him before he collapsed. Tears streamed down his face. This wasn't just a stalker. This was someone who had studied him so intimately, someone who understood his deepest fears, that he was only a reflection, a fragile mask of perfection. Bill slammed the journal shut. "We'll trace this. Handwriting, paper, ink, everything. We'll find them." But Michael shook his head slowly. "Don't you see? It doesn't matter who they are. They've already won. They made me see myself." The room fell silent. Only the distant echo of fans chanting his name carried through the walls. Michael stood, walking slowly toward the mirror. He looked at himself, really looked. The makeup, the glitter, the hat, the glove. And for the first time in years, he whispered to his reflection, "Who am I, really?" The mirror offered no answer. Only the faint tremor of his own hand reaching out to touch the glass. Outside, the crowd was still singing, still waiting, still believing in the King of Pop. But inside, Michael knew the performance wasn't over. The real battle had just begun, the battle between the man and the mask.